Alrighty. Hey everyone, so I just got done building my very own monster like out of Frankenstein. And so while I wait for that to wake up, I guess I should review the actual Frankenstein. So let's get right into it. Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be reviewing Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So, Frankenstein is, of course, a very famous novel published in 1818, and it's considered to be one of, if not the first ever science fiction novel. So, without Frankenstein's existence, we wouldn't have Dune, we wouldn't have other science fiction novels. I'm sorry, I don't really know any other science fiction novels besides Dune, but that's not the point. Anyway, Frankenstein was very revolutionary in the science fiction and horror genre. So this is like one of the most important books ever to exist. And yeah, I just want to address the cover that I'm showing. I'm very aware that it's showing a wounded naked man, and I will get to that when I discuss the themes and stuff of Frankenstein, because it actually has something to do with the book. But I'm just going to leave that be for now. So in the meantime, you're just going to have to look at a wounded naked man. I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable with that, but that's just how it is. But anyway, so Frankenstein is just a really classic and important piece of work. So I guess I should actually explain what it's about before we get into the nitty-gritty of the details. So let's go ahead and do that. So before the main story of Frankenstein actually shows up, we get a series of letters from this guy named Robert Walton to his sister Margaret. Basically just explaining that he's on a trip and stuff. He's like sailing across the world and yeah. But we'll get to Walton later, don't you worry. But the main story of Frankenstein follows this man named Victor Frankenstein, who basically, for the first couple chapters, tells his life growing up, how he met this girl named Elizabeth. And they call each other cousins, but they're not actually cousins. They just kind of like live together, and they were just kind of like best friends growing up. So they're not actually like biological cousins and stuff, because they're going to get married eventually. So in case there was an ick factor there isn't one, so don't worry about that. But anyway, so, Victor grows up, he loses his mother, unfortunately, and he goes to college where he gets really good at science. And he gets so good at science that he starts to think that maybe he could create life, not in the conventional way, but by getting a bunch of already dead body parts and then kind of MacGyvering them into some sort of creature that is alive. And so, over the next couple years, he eventually does this and makes his creature. But when he looks at the creature that he just made, he finds it horrible. Like, it has yellow skin, black lips, long black hair, stitches all over the place. It's just like a creepy, disgusting, and gross-looking creature. And so Victor's like, oh, that's gross. So he basically just abandons the creature and just goes back to live his life. So what he does is he goes back with his family, kind of lives with his family and stuff. And the next couple of years happen kind of not really eventful. But then one day, Victor realizes that one of his younger brothers, William, was violently murdered. And so everyone thinks that it's like this girl, Justine, who did it. But in reality, Victor just knows that it was his monster that he created. And so while he's searching for this monster, he finds the monster. And so basically the monster just proceeds to give his life story on what happened the last couple of years after Victor abandoned him. And basically what that boils down to is that the monster ended up in a town where he secluded himself in like a barn or some sort of empty house or whatever, while observing a family nearby. And while observing them, he learns how to read, how to write, how to communicate. He basically just gets really smart from watching this family for like 2 years. But he can't help but feel super lonely. So one day, while the rest of the family is out, he goes to the house where he meets this blind guy, And the blind guy's kind of liking him. And then for a while, after the family returns, they see the horrible monster, basically say that he's ugly and gross and stuff, and they just skip town. So Frankenstein's monster is just really lonely and stuff. And so one day, after he leaves the family's house that is no longer there, he sees a girl almost drowning in a river or pond or something. So he goes and saves her. But the girl's father is not very happy that his daughter was saved by this very ugly individual. So, he renounces the monster and all that stuff. And so basically the monster just started getting like really hateful and apathetic towards humanity because they only see him as ugly instead of an actual human being. And so one day he meets this little boy named William. Yes, the same William that was killed. And he's basically like, hey, if you don't live with me, I'm going to kill you. And so, long story short, he kills the child, which of course leads us back to Victor. So basically, the monster tells Victor, all I want for you to do is make me a woman just as horrible and ugly and disgusting as I am. We will leave society forever. You won't hear from us ever again. Just give me an ugly woman, and then we will just leave you alone, and I won't kill anyone ever again. And so Victor is at first like, no. But then when the monster reassures him that he will just stay out of society forever, Victor's like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So over the next couple months or year or something, he starts doing it. But then he starts wondering, what if these monsters reproduce and start having little ugly baby monsters and start killing everything? And that scares him. So what he does is he takes what he's already built of the woman and just destroys it. And also the monster said that he would be keeping tabs on his progress. So the monster saw him destroy the woman. And so the monster's like, yo, what was that? I thought we had a deal. And then Victor's like, I'm sorry, I just can't go through this. You are destined to be alone and ugly forever. So, get lost. And then the monster's like, okay, fine, but I'll be there on your wedding night. So with that threat, Victor's, of course, a little scared, but he goes back to see his family again, and the next little while, things go okay. But, soon his father dies and stuff, and that's not very cool. But anyway, he finally marries Elizabeth, the woman of his dreams, and on the wedding night, like right after they get married, Elizabeth goes up to the room, to like their bedroom to relax or whatever, and then she is instantly strangled and killed by the monster. And Victor doesn't like that. So he's like mourning over his dead wife, his very new dead wife, mind you. And meanwhile, he vows to get revenge on the creature and hunt him to the ends of the earth. So that's exactly what he does. He boards a ship and then just scours the earth for the monster for however long. And eventually both him and the monster end up in the Arctic, like Antarctica. And Victor is like getting sick and freezing and stuff. And so he encounters this man named Walton on a boat. And it turns out that this entire book that we've been reading so far is just what Victor has been telling Walton on the boat. So, see, the Walton letters make sense now. And so basically, long story short, after Victor finishes his story, he basically says, he basically tells Walton, hey, I'm probably not gonna live through this trip. So I want you, yes, you, to find this monster and kill him for me so that I can die happy. And so Walton's like, I don't know what to think about this. So anyway, long story short, Victor eventually succumbs to his illness in the cold and dies. And overseeing Victor's dead body is the monster, who basically tells Walton, I kind of feel a little bad about all this murder and this death and this chaos, but Walton's not having it. But the monster is like, I'm just so lonely, and because of my horrifying appearance, I'm just never going to be able to have any woman that I want. So the only way that I really see my life ending is with death. And so with that, he jumps off the boat into the icy water below and dies. And that is how Frankenstein ends. So, for any of you who may know Frankenstein through the really popular movie that came in 1931, the book didn't sound at all like the book, or sorry, like the movie. And that's because the movie just did like a bunch of weird stuff that just completely destroyed the like story of the book. But anyway, I found the book really interesting. It's certainly slow at times, like don't get me wrong. There are times where it's a little hard to read because it just drags on. But the stuff with the monster, especially like at the end, it gets really interesting and you get really into it. But so yeah, I really liked Frankenstein. It was certainly something. I can see why it's so popular because it's just that good. And I love the themes of it, which are two main themes: the horrors of power and modern science, and the second one, which is good versus evil. So I want to discuss the power and science first. So of course Victor gets drunk on power, and he starts to get so into himself that he thinks that he can recreate life, not through conventional means, but like actual like just rebuilding stuff and making it come to life, which he does. So Victor definitely has a bit of an ego going on since he thought he could do that in the first place, and he does end up doing it, of course. But yeah, he's got a bit of an ego. So I will say that Victor is certainly quite the narcissist, and he blames the monster for all of his problems instead of himself. So Victor isn't super likable, but he isn't like hateable either. I'd put him in like gray area. There's some gray area in there. It's like he's not good enough to be like completely good, but he's not bad enough to be evil either. It's like he's just a morally gray character, and I like that because people naturally are morally gray. They do not have like specifically good attributes or specifically bad attributes. Everyone is just morally gray. At least most people are. I don't want to mean the totally evil people, but okay. Anyway, and for the next theme, good and evil, kind of like what I talked about just now. The monster, because he is outcasted by society, he decides to turn to evil and violence to kind of get revenge on whatever he sees fit. So, of course, that brings back the theme of good versus evil, because Frankenstein, Victor, thought that he could do some good by reanimating a bunch of deceased corpses by putting them together and reanimating it. And his creator, his creation, now outcast by society, including himself, just decides to go evil because he's so ugly that no one will ever give him a chance. So I would have to say that if there's a lesson for Frankenstein, I would say don't judge people just by the way that they look, and make sure your ambition isn't too high, I guess. Don't get full of yourself and stuff. So like, there's a lot of moral lessons in here. But overall, Frankenstein is just a really good book about morality, modern day science, and everything in between. But now, as I said, I want to kind of go over what this weird cover is actually about. So, of course, this is a wounded naked man, and from the back of the book it says it's from the wounded Philoctetes, or however you say his name. And basically, I did some research for the painting, and it's like that the guy's wounded or whatever, and he's like in a fragile state of both mind and physicalness, which kind of reflects Victor's character with how unstable his mind is at sometimes. So there's like some like poetic stuff in here between Victor and this guy, but I don't know, I still find it weird that the cover is just a wounded naked man. But yeah, so that's all I really want to talk about the cover. But yeah, Frankenstein is just a really good book. It is older, so I guess if you don't like older books, then kind of beware of that. But if you do want to get into older books that are considered classics like me, I'd say give Frankenstein a try. It is a really good story of good versus evil, scientific ambition, and the limits of creativity and humanity. and everything in between. So I just say that Frankenstein is really good. So, yeah, go read Frankenstein. But yeah, guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Anyway, yeah, be sure to leave a like down below. I know I'm showing a dislike, but please leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you have not. We are still on the road to 300, so let's get to 300 subscribers pretty soon. But yeah, and remember at the beginning of this video, I was working on my own Frankenstein-like creation. So I wonder if that has done anything. Hey, there it is. Hey, creature. Oh. Oh, that's hideous. Oh no. Oh no. No, 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 no.